Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Based on a True Story. My name is Matthew Baxter.
And I'm Blake Smith.
And I'm Karen Stolzner.
So this week, we're going to be talking about the movie Annabelle and the story that inspired the movie. Mm-hmm. So how do we want to start this, guys? Because this was an interesting one. I mean, she actually made her first appearance in The Conjuring, not in Annabelle.
Yeah.
So,
and what I like about that is it's succinct and it gets right to the point and basically covers every based on a true story thing in the Annabelle story. And then you get a whole movie called Annabelle with almost none of that.
Exactly.
Well, yeah. I guess she was a popular character in the movie, and that's why a lot of people were clamoring for more about her. Yeah, I think we've done a few similar movies to this because we looked at Child's Play recently, and we've talked about Robert the Doll before, and several Monster Talk episodes. So this is really, I think, in keeping in that same vein of haunted or demonic dolls.
Yeah, and if you haven't listened to our demonic doll episode, I strongly suggest you do, because it has a really great true story about a demonic doll, and it's very
at the
creepy.
Start. Yeah, very scary. More scary, unfortunately, than a lot of than this movie and a lot of true stories out there.
So, yeah. But this one, and that one's true though. That one really happened. So
absolutely.
It did,
Absolutely. The interesting thing about this is we've had to watch over some older movies that maybe don't hold up as well, like The Hills Have Eyes and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And the thing that made those movies bad, if you want to say that, would have been their budget and the amount of time that they had to get the movies done. So they were forced to be creative. They were also forced to not maybe get the best take they could because they were on a schedule and, like I said, the budget and everything. So they really had to push things hard. And I'm having a hard time figuring out what the hell excuse Annabelle has, because it was not a good movie. And yet it had a huge budget. It had all kinds of time to get things done. And they didn't get the best takes. I don't know what the deal was with the script, because it did not follow the story that it was supposed to. Right. Although they did mention sort of the Warrens, that they were going to talk to a married couple about this.
They did.
And that was like the only time they were referencing it. But the thing is when you see her in The Conjuring, one of the first things that Ed says is, there is no Annabelle. There is no Annabelle. There was never an Annabelle. It is a demon trying to trick you into giving it permission to come into your lives. And so let's make a movie called Annabelle based in this same universe, this Conjuring universe, and make the hero, the Superman of it all, make him completely wrong.
Yeah. It's also got this weird thing where we're doing based on a true story. So there's like the movie is based on a story, but then that story itself has like another story behind it that is not really well known. So we've got this is a very layered episode.
Lots of layers to peel back on this one, but I guess we should just give an overview of the plot.
I believe, Karen, this was your first time and my first time to actually watch this film.
No, I had actually watched it with Matt years ago,
but she didn't realize it until halfway through the movie.
Yeah, to my embarrassment, I had actually watched the film years before. So it goes back to 2014. So I think I was pregnant at the time. So I can just say that
creepy.
with the things that happen.
If the movie delivered, it might have been extra creepy.
Forgot about it. But then halfway through, I was remembering little sections of it. And but anyway, the plot. You want to give us a kind of rundown, Matt?
Well, basically what happens is there's this couple, freshly married and freshly pregnant, that the husband, I believe, he's an intern for a medical doctor.
Yeah, he's going to be a doctor.
He's going to be a doctor, medical doctor intern. And I believe that was it a baby shower gift that she was given? Was this doll that was a missing piece in her collection?
It was her husband gave it to her, because
that's right. It was her husband.
Right. Yeah. She'd been wanting it for years. Which they keep saying, oh, it's an antique. Everybody wants one of these. They're hard to find. because nobody would ever want this doll. It's horrible. What?
Well, even before, I think, and I guess we're going to talk about this soon, but how she develops this. I mean, to begin with, it's a pretty ugly looking doll, and it becomes progressively more ugly throughout the course of the film. So it reminds me a little bit of Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray, how as it's becoming more evil, it becomes uglier. And but it is pretty ugly to begin with. But then if we're talking about the real Annabelle, linked to the story of the Warrens, it's a Raggedy Ann doll, and it looks absolutely nothing like Annabelle in the movie.
And the same as it did the day it was purchased, pretty much. Doesn't change.
She gets more blue. She seems to look more blue.
Yeah, she gets more blue, purplish look, and she gets
more
weird scars. I mean, the thing is they threw her in the trash, and they had her getting, beaten over the bassinet and everything else. But
but we should put, so I think there's the original story of Annabelle. There's no explanation for why the doll is like evil or whatever. Right. Like it shows up and trouble comes with it. Right. And then, and so they start this story. This is like, if you watch The Conjuring, they give a pretty good synopsis. There's two nurses and a guy who's the fiance of one of the nurses, and they are living in an apartment together. The doll shows up as a gift from the mom of one of the people. Yeah. And then it starts moving itself. They don't see it move. They just find that it has moved when they're not in the room, which sounds
I just want to say to everybody that this episode is going to be a bit more non-linear.
Yes.
Than the others. We will be jumping around a bit because I think we're all kind of irritated that we had to sit through this movie. But
again,
I feel like
the doll. The doll, I think that they come home and the doll is in a different room, right, or it's in a different position, and the activity just progressively becomes more evil. They'll find notes in a kind of childish scrawl saying "Help me," or "Help me, Cal." So we hear
"Help Lou,"
"Help Cal." And in the movie, of course, you have "Help me" written across the ceiling,
crayons. And "Miss me"
with
miss
crayons.
Me.
Oh, miss me.
Miss me.
Yes, because I think they'd left the doll alone, and the doll was angry.
I think they left the doll to go to Pasadena. They threw the doll in the trash, and then they didn't. Isn't that when they went to Pasadena, and then all of a sudden the doll shows back up, and it's "Miss Me" everywhere?
Yes, that's right.
I don't know, something like that. And I couldn't commit it to memory. I'm so sorry.
Well, in the true story as well, the doll appears with blood on its hands. And I think that they see blood on the bedding and around the room. And of course, we have it finally escalates to the point where there are attacks on the occupants of the house. And so the boyfriend, in other stories too, he is the roommate's friend or something like that. So again, we have all of these. We don't have specifics. We have these names that keep changing, which is, as we've discussed a lot in the past in other shows, a hallmark of an urban legend, where the facts keep changing and the names keep changing and places and dates and things like that. But ultimately, we have this guy who's connected to this story who is attacked by Annabelle and wakes up, and she has her hands wrapped around his throat in what sounds very much like a sleep paralysis attack.
It does.
So I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah,
nice little soft,
scratches.
little soft hands around his throat.
That's the thing.
Hands.
It's like it really messes up everything if you switch out the scary doll from the movie with a Raggedy Ann doll.
Yeah,
it's just being
it's like getting punched by Kermit. I mean, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I've talked about this before, and I checked this story with my mum recently. But when I was a kid, I think I might have been 6 or 7. We received a doll, and it was this anonymous gift in a very large coffin-like box. And we opened it up, and it was a Raggedy Ann doll. And it contained eggs. I don't know if they were spider eggs or something, was in its hair or in its face. So my mum contacted customs or quarantine and asked them about it, and they said, "Oh, it should be fine." I don't have any photographs of the doll at all, but it was just a really creepy thing, not knowing who this doll came from. And to this day, my mother doesn't remember who gave it to us. And she was disgusted and she threw it out. So I kind
But
of
you said it was like this big black sort of egg sack.
It's something like that. But I don't know if that's a false memory or
She's
if
not
that's what I
saying
truly
that's
saw.
it exactly.
Yeah. Thank you. But it was
Your
enough
memory
to
is
give me
very
somewhat of
scrambled about this,
Yeah.
apparently.
to give me somewhat of an engram about Raggedy Ann dolls, and people say, "Oh, they're cute," or "Oh, they're just silly looking." Yet to me,
They're
there's some
infested.
potential. There's some potential for some evil. Yes, so a demonic infestation. Perhaps.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, the first step is infestation, and then it's obsession, and then it's possession. So you were well on your way.
Yeah. We grew up, my grandparents were kind of hoarders. And so they had this really weird old doll that was as big as my little sister, and they gave it to her. And somebody had clipped all the hair off of it, so it looked like it was kind of like a crazy insane asylum person. And it haunted me for years and years. And I finally found a photo of it, and it was as scary as I recalled. It was just super creepy. I don't know why. Like somewhere in the past, someone said, let's make a doll the size of a child, but give it dead eyes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the big black eyes.
Yeah, but if they were live eyes, that would be worse.
It would be worse. It'd be worse. But that always set me up to be scared of this stuff. So yeah.
But yeah, dolls are creepy. I mean, we were talking, about these other doll experiences, and this movie almost makes you want to go in search of pictures of dolls from your own past, apparently. Because I spent a lot of time last night going through all my pictures, because we had gone over to visit my mother at one point, and she has this room
that was scary,
full of dolls, and I swear
part.
one of them looks just like Reagan McNeil in the depths of possession.
Oh wow.
And it's not intended to, but dolls are just creepy. They're ugly and they're scary. And
I didn't like them much as a girl. I know it's a real gender role thing, but I had some Barbies and stuff, and I used to cut the hair off and cut the heads off and plant them and do things like that. But it's probably for another episode.
But I'm not scared of action figures. They're fine. So
yeah.
But yeah, speaking about hoarders.
Well, I did want to say, like, I know we're going to be pooping on this movie pretty hard. But I want to admit, like, despite being a skeptic of the paranormal, I'm a huge fan of horror films. And generally speaking, I'm a fan of the Conjuring series, except for we'll get to about the whole thing about the Warrens. And that's a deep and interesting story, which I think is worth talking about. But this movie had some really good creeps in it up to a point, and then it just pooped itself.
Well, what bits did you like? Because
actually,
I do think that we should try to find some positives in the movie.
Yeah, and I've got
we never really did get to what the synopsis was.
Well, we started on it. Then we kind of went off on about Annabelle, but she's only part of the story. This is really a story of a demonic, not a possession, an assault, like a demonic assault. Like the demon. There's a demon who wants to take the soul of the mom. Is kind of a spoiler.
I do want to say though that it's confusing because they do really shuffle between theories. They keep showing the Annabelle Higgins with the doll, and then suddenly they show a demon, and so you never quite know exactly what's going on there.
Is it the doll itself? I mean, you just you can't keep track.
So the couple that we talked about, they've moved into a house, and their neighbors.
Very nice house.
Extremely
for
nice house.
An intern and a stay-at-home mom.
I think of all the unbelievable things in this film, the most unbelievable thing is how well off these people are for having like a beginner's marriage and a beginner's job, and everything's just starting out. Yet somehow they're in a house. Oh my gosh, it's a really nice house.
Friends,
Yeah, yes, it is. It's well, if I'm going to have to watch these people, I might as well enjoy their house, because man, when they later on they move to the apartment, and it's like, oh my gosh, I would dump my house for that apartment in a heartbeat.
Oh, it's beautiful
demons, and I'll deal with
expensive furniture.
Oh yeah, the paint jobs,
clothing, everything.
Yeah, everything was lovely. Oh, anyway,
so these are all the good parts of the movie.
Yeah.
That's right.
Design, photography, beautiful. The music's great. So there's the neighbors that, like, there's a really cool segment at the beginning where the neighbors you're seeing through a window, the neighbors, and you sort of like you can see them waking up, they're hearing something, but it's all done like you can't hear what's actually happening.
It's kind of Hitchcock like.
It's Rear Window. And so when horrible things happen next door, you start to feel like, oh my gosh, it's super scary. What's going on over there?
Well,
And I think I thought one of the things I liked was the way they racked up the tension. And there's this whole subplot about these two cultists and they keep giving you news about the Manson family and the rise of the satanic panic. So, I mean, they've set the stage for this to be, a spiritual warfare thing really early on. So,
but I want to say that it did confuse me at the start. I was wondering who this older couple was. Were they neighbors? Were they friends? Were they related parents or something like that?
I thought they were like parents for first. Yeah.
Well, at first, when you see that they're living next door and they had this close relationship with this younger couple, and then you see what happens to them in the bedroom, I really had a sense of Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, this movie reeks of Rosemary Baby.
It really
Rosemary's Baby.
I mean,
baby
there's
with
this woman,
rosemary on
she's pregnant, and
they moved to an apartment that's not that different from the Dakota building. I mean, it's
so it really seemed like it was kind of following that plot for a little while, and then you realize, oh no, they're just neighbors, and their daughter, daughter who had taken off and joined a cult, she had come back home and basically killed her mother and father, I think, with her boyfriend.
Yes.
I think she'd gotten roped into this cult through him. And then suddenly they're next door with this young couple. And I just thought it was very unbelievable the way that the wife is attacked. She's stabbed in her side right near her belly, pregnant belly. And she kind of falls over and she just looks very vague. And I thought her acting was pretty terrible. I realized she was kind of the lead actress, but I didn't think she brought it in this performance, Yeah, I mean, it didn't matter what happened, whether she was
Go ahead.
Whether she was getting dragged into a burning kitchen
Literally,
by this demon, or no matter what happened, it just seemed like she was very impassive. So it was unbelievable in that regard.
I think that we have to blame a little bit of the script and the director on that as well.
Yeah, the script wasn't terribly good.
It didn't make a lot of sense. I mean, the thing is, like, talking about acting, the father of Annabelle, the neighbor, that's Brian Howe, and I really like him. He's a bit actor who does a lot of really fun things, and I was hoping for him to have a bigger part in this, because that would have probably brought a little more to the movie, in my opinion. But
certainly the wife was very wooden, the husband was wooden, the baby was cute.
Baby was cute. Remind me a little bit of Nathan from Raising Arizona. But he did his good acting is as well as anyone else in the movie, so you got to appreciate that. But it was one of the interesting things is,
it was Leah and Mia, the mother.
I guess the baby was a female. I can't even remember. We never saw the baby naked, thankfully, so we don't really know.
So allegedly, come on, that was all the information we needed.
That's true. You nailed it there. But we're watching the movie.
We probably need to throw a spoiler warning up, because I think we're about to trash this film really hard.
But that's what we do in every episode of Based on a True Story. I mean, this is all about spoilers. So
it is about
really
spoilers.
Want to watch this film first, and then
Jesus, I went to watch this movie.
Watch it.
I didn't know. Like, I could not believe this movie was 2014. It seems like it was like a year ago that I decided not to watch it. Wow.
But it looked like it was set in maybe the 60s or 70s, I think, from the clothing style.
It was contemporary to the Manson murders. So.
Oh, okay. All right. There you go.
Now, the interesting thing is we're watching this, and this. I'm having to explain to Karen what Jiffy Pop is, because she hadn't seen the whole thing you stick on the stove and it blows up into this big thing, and she hadn't seen those before. So I was kind of explaining that, and then
carcinogenic butter, like the modern ones.
Oh no,
down in Australia they have Pop Mate.
Yeah.
Didn't have anything like that, just the bagged stuff. But
just the bag stuff. Well, this was the step just before microwave popcorn. So
I remember as a kid. No, I have very happy memories of my father taking us to the convenience store. Like, we lived out in the rural nowhere land, and he would like take us to this one little store that had one gas pump and sold garbage food, and they had Jiffy Pop there. We'd get that and come back to the house and watch a movie on TV. This was when I was like 4 or 5, and that's like one of my earliest memories. I loved the Jiffy Pop.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, that was a big thing. It really was. But the thing is, we're sitting there watching that, and she's in the other room. The wife is in the other room, and she's like doing stuff and
Sewing, I think.
sewing.
What is Chekhov's sewing machine? They keep teasing she's going to sew her finger over and over again. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then
they
she
were really
does.
well. Then it's like poke. Oh, I'm bleeding.
Yeah. And then she just washes it off and it's fine.
But you're expecting it to go all the way up her arm and everything. And
I expected it to be like a serger and like sew her name or say the devil was here or something in her hand. So
and you should be writing the movies, Blake.
So
yeah, get on that, man. This is
these people in stitches.
What Matt's trying to say is that I sat there watching that scene.
Well, I got to set this up just a little bit, Karen.
Sure.
Because I'll let you, tell what you're gonna say. But the thing is this whole thing, the Jiffy Pop thing is going up, and I just kind of noticed that Karen's leaning forward a little bit more, and then pretty soon a fire comes up and she's leaning forward a little bit more, and then all this is, it's just like it builds and builds, and she's leaning forward, and she looks at me with this crazed look, and I'm like, oh my God, she's possessed. And then she says,
well, can't she friggin' smell that popcorn? I mean, she's pregnant.
Yes.
To this day, years after having had a baby, my smell is much more acute. And I mean, she was just she's sewing and she's watching some kind of TV soap, and she's oblivious to the smell.
You can smell burnt popcorn a week later. What?
I could smell it in the movie. I mean, it was just so blatantly obvious. So I thought that was kind of badly done.
Bit, like you don't need a smoke detector to smell burnt popcorn.
Well, it's just like right there. She found the reason that this wasn't really based on a true story, because that was not true. Right there.
The pregnant woman could not smell the popcorn. Yeah. And then they had her eating pickles in another scene.
Pickles with mustard. Yeah. So at first, my first
no
thought
stereotypes
there.
Yeah.
And then my second thought was, well, that's basically 2/3 of a Crystal burger. So yeah, maybe. What? You don't have Crystal out there, do you? So, or do you have Crystal? No, like it's a restaurant. It's like White Castle.
No. You want some
little square burgers? They sell White Castle in the freezer, but they don't put the little pickle and mustard in it.
We have crystal meth out here, so
it's almost the same.
High speed chicken feed.
Mistakes were made.
But I still think, talking about scenes that we did enjoy, I really did enjoy it when the mother was leaving, getting out of the house, and she meets those little kids on the steps.
Oh yeah, that was a good segment. Yeah.
And the little boy, the mother's talking to the kids and trying to introduce the baby, and little boys, we don't talk to strangers. And but anyway, when she seems to build an affinity with the little girl, and then when she comes back, having been out for a while, she finds a drawing on the stairs, and it just seems to be this charming little 6-year-old's drawing of a mummy and a baby in a carriage. And then she takes a few further steps up the stairwell, and then finds another picture, and continues to walk up the stairs and finds more pictures. And it's progressively telling this story, essentially about a mother whose baby gets killed in the carriage. And so it's really kind of setting you up to think,
and then that's going to happen later
in the movie. And it does. And I think that is, well, for me as a mother, a scary part, where you see the carriage just go out into the street and get knocked over by this, was it a garbage truck or something, or a bus?
Yeah, some kind of truck. Yeah.
And
one of the things that I'm sorry, go ahead, Karen.
Well, you just think in that moment, the baby's in there, and then she spins around and she.
Oh no, it was a real cheap shot. It was a well constructed cheap shot. It really was.
Well, but the problem that I had is, I don't think it was the thing that wasn't well constructed about it is that I didn't think about those drawings telling the story before it happened until just now.
Okay. Oh,
really?
I
totally. Yeah, I'm with you, Karen. I totally thought this looks like sequential art. It's telling a story, narrative.
Yeah, to me, it was a foreboding kind of thing.
Yeah, no, when I got that with the drawings, that was a story. But when it actually happened out on the street, for some reason, I didn't make the connection right away.
Yeah, and the truck's even the same color. It's weirdly prescient. Yeah.
Well, I think what happened is that there was too much time in between her finding the drawings and then that incident happening, with a lot of other things happening in the meantime. So I think if it followed a little closer.
I noticed something that's probably a mistake in the film, but it's a weirdly creepy mystery that they left unanswered. And I noticed in the we do show notes for this, but I didn't see anything about this. But a big part of the film, they're in the apartment and they're hearing noises in the apartment upstairs.
Upstairs,
right?
yeah.
And they keep looking up, and then she's like, "No, wait, this is going to happen." And like she's got the whole routine of these people upstairs in her head,
like a board housewife.
Yeah, because you can hear your neighbors or whatever. But here's the creepy part: that they live on the top floor, Karen, and they never explain that at all. When she goes into the elevator to get out of the basement, she's going to the top floor. And they never
You are
comment.
right. Floor 6.
Yeah,
you're right.
yeah. They never explain how come. Like she's like living it below these people who have no access to their room. There's no way to get up there. There's like.
Well, are you saying that this is a blooper, or do you saying this is a blooper, or do you think
I think it's a
was
goof.
intended?
I think they meant for it to be increasing ramping up the
tension,
the scariness. But then they you can't get there. Like it's like
they just dropped the ball on that.
They dropped the ball on it. Like she should have been on the 5th floor, and that would have been the neighbors upstairs. You can't have it both ways. You can't live on the top floor and have upstairs neighbors. That's just not an option.
Yeah, so. I think they could have made that work though. If they'd made that more overt, then it would have seemed like
if her husband says, "Wait a minute, how do we have neighbors upstairs?"
Exactly. If they'd done that, we would have been able to link it. But I think Matt picked up on a few things throughout the film. It seemed like there were some little bloopers here with the cinematography. I think that there was one scene where you could see someone or a shadow in a photo, in a print on the wall. Do you remember that, Matt? There were a few little things that happened here and there that seemed like they were.
Oh yeah, you could see like a cameraman or something in the reflection of one of the pictures, and
they did some cool subtle stuff as well, which is a favorite of directors. Like in the sort of exciting sequence at the end, you can see on the art on the walls, like when there's stuff written, some of the pictures on the walls have been changed to pictures of demons, which I thought was kind of cool.
Oh, I didn't even pick up on that.
The only reason I did was because I was pausing for something else, probably to refill my coffee because I was trying to stay awake. But so they end up moving out of the house because of the fire, and they end up moving into a really
there's
nice
a problem
apartment.
there now. There's a problem with that as well. The fire. So she goes in there, and then she I can't remember what happens. She falls down. She's crawling away.
Right.
And then it grabs her.
The neighbors
come
in, and
the rug tries to pull her into the kitchen fire, and she managed to get away.
Yep.
And then the neighbors bust in and help her out.
Yeah, and then she tells her husband, they dragged me back into the flames, and no, she says, this place is cursed.
Yeah.
Well, then she's had her baby, and he comes to see her in hospital. He's missed birth, and she doesn't communicate that to him. But I think that was really just a kind of cheap way of moving to the next part of the story, where they moved to Pasadena into that apartment. And I thought another thing that was strange too is that they at the start they had gone and seen this priest at the local church, and then they'd moved to Pasadena. And I think that they gave you the impression that they were moving further away from.
Yeah, where did they
coast.
start? Where did they start out?
I'm not too sure, but it seems
not that far away. They were talking about not being close enough to the beach at one point. I don't think they're moving too far, right?
But then, it seemed to me like they were moving, if they were moving away from the coast, because usually if you live near the coast, even if you're half an hour away, you'd still consider that to be near the coast, and yet they made it seem like they were moving farther inland. And then suddenly they're back at the church and dealing with the priest again, and it just seemed to me like they hadn't really moved, or they'd.
They didn't. They didn't go far.
They didn't go far, and it should
be in a different parish. And
they're staying exactly. They're staying in the same parish. They got the same priest. That actor is.
So wouldn't you have the same house? I got
Tony Amendola. Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly they got the same interior decorator because the apartment looks. By the way, I mean, seriously, if you're moving to an apartment, make sure it's as big as your old house. That's really important.
Yep.
Jiminy Christmas.
Yep. But we should talk about the priest. And so they do see him originally for some, I guess, marriage counseling or something. That's how it seems.
Yeah,
it does. They're having all of these problems, and he says we should talk to someone, and she says, "What, a shrink?" And then they're seeing the priest. Of course, there's no sign of the.
To be fair, that's a very common part of what the clergy do is marriage counseling, social counseling, all that kind of stuff. So I thought.
I'm sure.
And
I
the
think,
actor there's Tony Amendola, excellent character actor. I thought he did a fine job. But working with what he had to work with. So
Yeah.
moving further towards the end of the film, though, I think it struck Matt and I that when the priest became involved closer to the end and he took possession of the doll, that was really a great opportunity for the doll to kill him, or for him to become to the demon to take possession of him. I mean, it was just strange to us the way that the movie ended. And again, I'm really jumping ahead at this point.
Yeah.
But it seemed like it would have been better had the priest somehow been involved, like the Exorcist, for him to
sacrifice himself. That's what
exactly.
we would have expected.
Yeah,
but instead he takes possession of the doll, and he doesn't even have an accident in the vehicle on the way home, which is what you're thinking is going to happen.
Again, exactly. They're teasing it, but then they don't do it.
Well, then it just kind of, I think it.
Then
really...
you get like this exceptionally supernatural, vulgar display of power when he tries to take the doll into the church, and it shoots him 40 feet out to the sidewalk. Which I love the effect. It was very surprising. Also felt
I think it would have been better had it been
BS.
subtle, had it been an accident in the car or something. And of course,
ambiguity.
Yes. And that is another problem with the film in general. There were some parts that would have been genuinely creepy had they not become more overt.
Right.
Matt, what did you think of the?
I don't want to interrupt, but like the whole thing with him getting knocked unconscious, and then the ghosts of Annabelle just picking up the doll and walking it back to the apartment seemed a little much. That's pretty vulgar display. Yeah. I mean,
Sorry. And that was strange. But when she was in
the mother was
where the mother was in, I don't know if it was in the house or in the apartment, I can't remember now, but where the doors kind of open and you can kind of see out of the room, and the little girl is standing there.
Yeah, that was in the apartment. Yeah,
that was in the apartment.
And then she rushes towards her.
She rushes.
I like that one. That was a good one.
If she hadn't turned, if she had just been standing there, and the mother was like, "Hey there," and the door slammed, and then she opened it, and no one was there, that would have been better.
Yeah, well, even if she ran to the door, but it was just her
she ran at the door
Annabelle.
and then turning into the grown-up Annabelle.
Made it tacky.
The grown-up Annabelle was starting to really give me a rash. I mean,
she kept coming up.
Back to the plot. The plot is allegedly, because there's the detective who keeps appearing to bring in detective. What is he called? Hold on a second.
Kinderman.
No. Exposition. Detective Exposition shows up to give them some more information, and he basically tells them it's a cult and that they were trying to summon something. And she gets a weird mark on her arm that disappears, and then she goes and gets a book on demonology. Like in every way, they're like doing the trope of the person who finds something weird and does the investigation, which is what we do. But like, to what end? Like, so the cult is trying to summon something. It summons a demon, a nameless demon, which is also apparently in cahoots with the ghost of the woman who helped summon it. But why the ghost of her? And I guess she's tied to the doll by blood.
Yeah,
but
because when she dies,
gone.
I think her
one drop of blood
bleeds onto the doll, and it goes into the doll's eye and somehow, which again makes
just
me
goes
think
right
of,
to the doll's soul.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes me think of Child's Play in the way that happens in the toy store when
the voodoo thing. Yeah.
Well, and it's a weirdly, the doll itself, the design of the doll, it's like the mouth is open, like it might be able to talk, but the doll never says anything. And largely the doll doesn't move. And when it finally does move, it's shown to be like being levitated by the ghost, right? Like it's not.
But then it runs past and smacks the mom in the face at one point.
It's a mixed bag, baby. It's a mixed bag. That's what
it also turns its head around at one point. The mother walks into the room. I think this is right towards the end, and Annabelle Higgins is sitting in the rocking chair and has the doll, and the doll kind of very slowly turns around, which was a little bit reminiscent of The Exorcist too, I think, with the neck.
Well, wait a minute. You might be pulling that from The Conjuring.
Did I?
Because remember when the little girl walks in the room and the
You're
nanny
right.
is sitting in the rocking chair holding the doll.
I'm conflating them. Okay,
well, that's the
you
thing
are
is
right.
it's easy to conflate because these I don't know, the two movies kind of had some of the same scenes of, terror.
Yeah,
But so yeah,
you're
yeah.
right.
But I mean, even that was not done very well. They worked really hard in The Exorcist. They worked really hard on that doll to make the seam move smoothly. And when Annabelle turns her head, it's like, and it's like
just like that. But you do think the doll's going to speak or something because of the way the mouth is designed.
Yeah, they didn't want to let it speak, though. It would have been able to get a SAG card. So
yeah. Well, I think we've kind of gone through most of the movie. We should really talk about the ending.
What about the demon?
I was going to say, no, we got to talk about the shitty ending.
That's what I'm saying. We've talked about most of the movie. Before we get into the true stories, we should talk a little bit about the ending. And so she befriends a neighbor who owns a bookstore, and this woman seems to detect the bookstore owner seems to detect something in her, some kind of disquiet and some kind of fear, and
metaphysical thing going on.
Yeah. And so she goes into Mia, the mother, goes into the bookstore one day, and she's looking in the area of demonology or ghosts or something like that, and basically it reveals what's happening to her. And this woman is very understanding, and yes, these kinds of things do exist. And so they form this friendship, and we get to find out more about her, and that she has this great sadness in her life where she had lost. It was a little bit difficult to tell how old the girl was.
She was in her 20s, I think. She was grown.
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought they'd set it up initially where she shows the locket, and it looks like a little girl who's maybe 7 or 8, and you just think, oh, this is terrible. But then, as you say, later on, it seems like she was a youth.
And it felt like she's an African-American woman played by the great actress Alfre Woodard. Tremendous actress, crappy role.
I don't know why did she accept this ending?
They pay.
It had a little bit of a kind of, stereotypical voodoo queen kind of. Well, I was going to
say it flirts terribly with the magic Negro stereotype. Yeah.
Yes, that was uncomfortable. And certainly it becomes even more uncomfortable. At the end.
She wasn't magic, but she was like occult aware and open to it, discussing it. And she ran a bookstore which seemed to be mixed with used books and occult books.
Metaphysical section was huge. Yeah.
So when she develops this friendship with Mia, she reveals the story that she was, I think, driving home from having visited the family one weekend, and she was having microsleeps, and she was driving with her daughter beside her, and she basically fell asleep and then woke up 3 weeks later in hospital, and her daughter never woke up. That was pretty much how she put it. Yeah. And so she said that Mia sees on her wrist that she has attempted suicide, and she has this horrible scar on her wrist. And she then says, but I was about to kill myself, and then I heard my daughter's voice, and she said, it's not your time yet.
Yeah.
So basically implying
God has something more important for you.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right. And so amazingly he did. He had something super important. You got to save this worthless white woman.
So
but not only that, at the cost of you giving up your soul to be tortured eternally in hell. Yeah.
But there was no God has no lead up to that. I mean, there was no kind of so much. There was no bargaining on behalf of the demon.
No, nothing. No, nothing. It was a worthless waste. It made no sense.
Like the old white man priest gets to walk off.
Well, and think about so suicide's a serious matter, right? And they've been flirting with it with the scar, and then she suddenly
with the mother as well. You could tell she was getting to a point where she was being tortured and tormented so much. And then at the end, she's standing on the window.
I found it offensive on so many levels. It was up until that point. I would have been, if they could have come up with a better ending, I would have given an okay review to this film. But for them to poop in my mouth after all that was ridiculous.
I think the priest. I think if they'd even gone the route of the exorcist and he'd, take the position of the demon, or I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, that's his
yeah.
job, right?
Yeah, it's literally
do
part of
that.
your
But
seminary
there was
training
no
is be ready to jump out a window to get a
but
demon out of it. It's
there was
part
no
of the
attempt
training.
at
So,
an exorcist and exorcism.
No,
And I
no,
thought that was
no. They didn't
strange
bless the
too.
house. They didn't do okay. Even in the Warrens story, an Episcopal priest came and blessed the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's how they
Cool.
cleanse the house, right? So
But it's making me think too that the friends that the bookstore owner, she supplied me with a bunch of books, and she said go through these and hopefully we'll find the answer in here. And that
Yeah.
wasn't borne out. I mean, you think that there's
It
going
was
to be some
not.
kind of cunning explanation in the end, or an exorcism or something, and that this is going to get resolved.
Well, I think part
no.
of the problem is that the mom spent more time watching General Hospital than she did actually doing research.
Was that General Hospital?
It was General
Uh,
Hospital.
Okay, what, back in the 60s or 70s?
Yes. Long
Gee.
running show. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we've given an overview of the movie, and I guess it's time to go to the true story of the demonic doll Annabelle. And
we should go first to the alleged true story. briefly.
Then we'll go to the true story.
Yeah. So briefly, the alleged true story of this film is,
as told in the beginning of The Conjuring.
As told in the beginning of The Conjuring, it comes from a book called The Demonologist.
Yep.
Yeah. And The Demonologist, written by Gerald Brittle. Who's still alive, and it was written in 1980. And I have read The Demonologist because I am a thorough researcher.
I have read it as well multiple times.
It's bless
and
you,
a
my
sucker
son.
for punishment. Yeah.
Well, I have limits in my research. But chapter 3 deals with the story of Annabelle, and it's largely like the intro to The Conjuring. I mean, that's pretty close to what happens in the book. They do try to make it a little creepier. I don't know. What about you, Matt? But in the story, they want to make a big deal out of the fact that the doll was leaving notes on parchment paper written in pencil.
Yeah,
the nurses owned neither parchment paper nor pencils. How can science explain this?
Yeah, and that's a great question, and I don't think science can explain it.
I don't think so either.
We're left with a mystery that there's no solution for in any way. It's got to be demons. It's demons or aliens. Aliens.
Well, remember, they thought ghosts. Like at first, they thought ghosts because they didn't know what was happening. They brought in a medium, and the medium said there was a little girl named Annabelle Higgins. She died when she was 7, which is different from the movie.
Yes. Because it was a youth in the movie.
And so the little ghost needs a home and wants to get into the doll. And so the nurses and their friend Cal are like, okay, what's the problem?
Lou, Cal or Lou, depending on which story.
So, yeah. That names are not important in these
they're
things.
not.
So,
No.
That's another thing science can't
to be
explain.
fair, I'm quoting air quotes, fair. The author, Gerald Brittle, changed the names of people to protect the innocent. So,
or guilty.
Also to protect the confabulation. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. So they do this exorcism, and then that's when all hell breaks loose because the doll begins to move. The whole thing about Cal being attacked while he's taking a nap, the scratches,
blood and the scratches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then they call a priest, and the priest that they call is an Episcopalian. And for some reason, he calls the Warrens because I guess the Episcopal Church is not equipped for this kind of disaster.
Who are Catholics, right?
They're Catholics, exactly.
Yeah.
They are demonologists who are not like officially sanctioned. But they're not officially sanctioned by the church, but they work frequently with the church. And if you read the demonologists all through the book, they're like, well, we looked for authorization from a priest. We brought in a priest. We did this with a priest. It's very Catholic adjacent. So
the interesting thing is I have actually dealt with both the Catholic Church and somebody who claimed to be a demonologist before, and the church does not allow anyone to claim to be a demonologist that is not a Catholic demonologist.
Yeah,
they do not recognize you as a demonologist if you're not actually an ordained Catholic demonologist,
which makes sense.
So the fact that they continue that while not being ordained demonologists. It was an interesting thing, and they really touted their Catholicism so much.
They did.
Um,
They did. I mean, and I don't think, I mean, do we know if almost every case in that book turns out to be a demon? Like, surprise, it's a demon.
Yeah, always
Yeah.
a demon.
Yeah.
Yep. But I wanted to hop back to the point you were making a moment ago about this parchment paper, and the mysterious appearance of a pencil. It really blows my mind. But the thing is if you were to say go onto YouTube, much like anyone watching this right now is, and do a search for a haunted house or ghosts, you will see that over 50% of what comes up is, I hoaxed my girlfriend. You should have seen the prank I played on my boyfriend. And that's what all these videos are. So I don't see how this could possibly be a prank. But beyond that,
were there pranks before YouTube though?
Yeah.
Oh, so you bring up a good point there.
Yeah.
No, actually, I think that this is a prank by the Warrens, because none of these people have ever come forward and say, yes, I was actually the person who received Annabelle. I am the priest that had the car trouble on the way. Nobody has come forward.
But there are lots of people who are attached to the story, and those stories and names keep changing. But I do think just the very beginnings of the story are strange, in that you have this 28-year-old nurse, and she's given a doll as a gift by her mother. I mean, absolutely.
It's all very weird. Yeah.
Well, as we've been talking, there are certainly women or people who like to collect dolls, but it's just a strange kind of gift to give to a woman who's in her 20s. And absolutely, if you have all of these extra avenues for hoaxes, you've got a roommate, and you've got the roommate's boyfriend or the roommate's friend, and these other people who are involved. It's
because it's like nobody ever went in this
they're
apartment.
playing tricks on each other.
I can explain this.
Oh,
I can. This is one thing I can explain, because what the mom was really saying was not, here's a Raggedy Ann doll. She was basically wanting it to go like this. Here's a Raggedy Ann doll. Mom, I'm a grown-ass woman. I don't need a Raggedy Ann doll. Oh, well, maybe you should have some grandbabies. Ta-da! Mystery solved.
Good work. I think you actually nailed it.
Yeah,
So,
that's very reasonable. But we still have to find one of these people that actually exists.
well, that's
or maybe
true.
the record of
and that's
the
a-
motorcycle
Father
accident
Daniel,
kills
an
him.
Episcopal priest. And keep in mind, by the way, all
Who's
this happens in
Father
Connecticut.
Cook then in other stories. Yeah, that's in Monroe, Connecticut. And when you're talking about hoarders earlier, it just makes me think of the Warrens Museum of Haunted Artifacts, and that's in Monroe, Connecticut. I can't think what it's called. What was the name, Matt? It was something like the demonologistical.
Some of them have been pulled, but they used to have a bunch of videos showing their collection. And Tony Spera, who is the son-in-law of Ed and Lorraine,
Tony Clinton,
interviewed Ed, and like they talked about different things. And they were doing like a look at like the some of their stuff was like Dungeons and Dragons books, and like it's just the most absolutely mundane stuff.
And,
yes,
and
the Simon Necronomicon, the one you could buy at the like paperback bookstore. And they were talking about it being a book of shadows. Like, no, that's not what it is.
Yeah, they did a short run of those leather bound ones, and I always wanted one really badly. So when Ed Warren is like, I just want to hit him so hard.
He didn't know what he was talking about, but the place is certainly filled with things that look like they would be haunted.
A samurai outfit,
But Annabelle absolutely has pride of place in the museum. And Tony, I think, was talking recently of there was a belief that the doll had escaped out of this glass case that it's kept in, and I think a priest blesses that once a week or once a fortnight or
twice a month.
I think.
And then I think does a blessing on the entire museum every so often too. But yeah, Tony was saying that, oh no, the doll did not leave the case. And but that was in The Conjuring, wasn't it? Where
are you saying case closed?
But the doll in the movie disappears out of the case. So I think that's probably where that legend is coming from.
Oh, it could be. Yeah. And,
but
and Chris,
the case has a cross above it. It's like this wooden case.
Mhm.
It's got a paper
and
sign saying, evil done open.
yeah, in this
thing.
kind of creepy Gothic handwriting.
It's
something about
still a Raggedy
positively-
Ann doll, though. It's really hard to get
positively
scared of
do
it.
not open. And yeah, there are pictures of Lorraine Warren carrying the doll from the premises, and it just looks patently ridiculous. Like, here's this older lady carrying a
Yeah.
friggin' doll, and it's haunted. And I think she said before she died, it was the only thing she was truly scared of in the museum. It was the most haunted object that they
Yeah.
had.
Okay, so you guys could see that, right?
Here we go.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the difference between
That's
I
a
like how they have
huge
no,
difference.
I can't
the
see
devil
I
tarot
can't tell the
card there.
difference. Which is Annabelle? I can't tell.
The one in the middle.
Yes.
But yeah, I love the little tarot card of the devil that's
Yeah, which is not an evil card.
hammered into the.
It means
Yeah.
change, I mean, it's just
Oh well,
whatever.
they don't really know much about about theory, about real theory, occult theory. I mean,
Yeah.
no, they don't.
They've got a
maybe
very
they do
dime,
now.
They have like a dime store, they're the same. I mean,
Sound bites.
literally the same people who were freaking out about the satanic panic. I mean, they're exactly the same mentality. This is all evil.
Oh, yeah.
It will send you to hell. Sorry, I
Mhm.
can move my finger up here to the camera. It will send you to hell. Okay, well, I don't really see how rolling dice in a Dungeons and Dragons game has really squat to do with the real occult.
Yeah.
That was
And it doesn't.
Oh, and there's
kind
legends.
of pop demonology.
Within the demonologist book, there's a story about a Father Daniel who came by and mocked the doll as being just a rag doll. And after he left, he almost wrecked his car. Sorry. Actually, that's from Mysteries in the Museum.
Then in other stories, though,
in the book, they have a guy who gets killed by the doll.
Yeah,
allegedly.
the motorcycle accident.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
If you do any research, if you look up articles or you look up videos and exposés about this story, just every time it's retold, there's a different name for the priest.
Yes.
He died,
Well,
or he
like,
was seriously
or the-
injured, or he was with his girlfriend, and the two of them were laughing at the doll, and
Yeah.
then they had an accident and died.
Yeah.
So
It
I think
seems
Lorraine
super
Laughing at the
Lorraine
time. So
actually-
who was? Oh,
Lorraine
that was
said
Lorraine.
that,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
That Lorraine said they were laughing at the doll, and then they were killed in this accident. So how did she know that?
In every way,
it's
it's like
clairaudient.
I would say folklore, except it's being made up by the
Yeah.
Warrens. It's bullshit. Like, it's just
Yeah.
show me a name, show me an obituary, show me proof they were at your house looking at the doll.
Mhm.
I mean,
Well,
But
do we
so-
know that this Tony is real? Because he seems like a creation of Andy Kaufman.
but
Uh,
I think Tony's a real guy. Anybody who would
No,
commit to the role
I've-
that
Well,
much, he's gotta
I've
be.
worked
What
with
I
Tony
wonder-
before, so
So,
I wonder about the connection to him with John Zaffis, who isn't he related to the Warrens too?
yes,
he's a
yes.
And he-
nephew. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah, but
nephew,
so-
and it's like a
But he has his
son-in-law.
own
So.
museum.
He
has his
does.
own museum, and he was the star of Haunted
Collector.
Yeah. But I guess we should
There's
talk
still-
a bit more.
There's still gravy in the Warren gravy bowl. Yeah.
Yes, there is.
but
There
not
is.
for not for Brittle though.
Yeah.
What was his name? Was it Brittle?
Yes,
the
the
author?
writer. Yeah.
Gerald
Yeah.
Brittle. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't initially money for him because what they went ahead and made the films without his
Yeah, so
input.
Karen's talking about a lawsuit that happened, a $900 million lawsuit that was filed by
Wow.
Brittle against Warner Brothers. And that lawsuit was complaining that Brittle was like pushed out, even though all this stuff was based on his book,
His book, yeah.
The Demonologist and The Devil in Connecticut. And actually, if you go read the court documents, he makes a very compelling case that he was the author of these stories.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Which we've seen
Yeah.
with Ray Garton too. Go away,
Exactly.
make it good.
Just make
Yeah.
it scary.
Um,
Make up. You got a little
Yeah.
bit to work with. Make up the rest and make it scary.
Right. We
I
did
think
so in our regular podcast, we did an episode on the Warren omission, which
Yeah.
talks about how Ray Garton was basically hired to do In a Dark Place, which is a
Mhm.
story that became the movie of a haunting in Connecticut.
Connecticut. Yes.
Connecticut.
And we also have a YouTube video that's kind of a primer for that episode as well. So
yes,
we need
we
to
do.
check in
Yeah.
with Ray because I know he's had some health issues. I'm not sure how. I hope he's doing okay.
yeah,
So.
yeah.
Yeah, he's
Mhm.
still around on Facebook, but yeah, we should absolutely bring him on again. And there's
Yeah.
just so much to talk about. But Matt was actually on that regular podcast episode with us. And I think that this really leads us into talking about the other true story, or just talking about the Warrens in general. And
I can kind of start off. I had called years ago. I had called up Ed, and
like you do.
Yeah, like you do. I called up Ed, and Lorraine answered, and she was very clipped with me, and she handed the phone to Ed, and he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. She was getting some bad vibes from you, so she handed you off to me." Now,
well, so she might, but
I got a chance. So all this time I'm thinking Lorraine hates me, and it's just kind of a thing. I was always very annoyed. A previous partner of mine always thought that she treated him like she was his grandmother, but she hated me. So what's the deal? What did I do wrong? Well, she's a psychic. I'm obviously anybody would hate me if they were a psychic. But the thing is I got a chance after hearing about this other true story within the Warrens to realize that maybe she wasn't mad at me as much as she was mad at Ed, and just it just makes a little more sense that her sound of irritation in her voice probably wasn't for me at all. So we talk a little bit about that. I'm wondering, should we talk just a real quick about Blake had supplied a photo of a possible inspiration for the look of the movie Annabelle doll. And I don't know if we want to take just a quick look at that before we hop into the other Warren story.
Yep.
He's attractive as all get out.
The doll that was featured in the Night Gallery episode, The Doll, which is based on, see if I can remember, Algernon Blackwood's story, I think. But
how close is it? Because I never saw this one, but how close is it to the living doll with Talkie Tina?
Oh, it's quite different. This is a colonial episode. A colonial guy goes to some British colony and offends people, and somebody from the colonies comes back to kill him. So they send this doll as a curse. And so it's a good story. It's a really good episode. Super creepy, because the doll's definitely going to kill the guy, and he doesn't have much recourse to try to stop it. And so it's got a wonderful twist. I love Night Gallery a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
And I've tracked down, this is interesting. They came out with a series of books that went with the series that contain a big chunk of the short stories that were inspirations for the episodes. So it's my goal at some point to read those and then do a little comparison of how the actual episodes play out. But
Night Gallery I thought it was a bit of a step up in creepiness from
it's definitely scary. It was a mixed bag. I think the other producer, it was Rod Serling and Laird Barron. I think no, that's not right. Hold on a second. Sorry, I'm just going to pour whiskey all over my desk. Hold on a second.
Make sure you get it on the keyboard.
Just a second. We'll edit this.
I hear that's good for eliminating cat urine.
Jack Laird. Sorry, Jack Laird. Laird Barron is also a writer named Laird, but it's different. Jack Laird is the producer of the show, and he had very different sensibilities than Rod Serling did. Rod wanted to do like a scarier version of the Twilight Zone, and Jack wanted to do almost like a Famous Monsters of Filmland kind of it's like a mixture of fun and silly and gore and horror, so they had very different sensibilities. So the show's very uneven, because some episodes will be like a 2-minute really funny skit, and then a super creepy episode. It's all over the place, but I still love it. And it gave an opportunity for a lot of early directors. I think Richard Donner might have been on there. I know that it was one of Leonard Nimoy's first opportunities to be a director. He did an episode on there. Cool, so it's a great show. It's got, like I say, it's spotty, but it's got some really good stuff in it. So yeah.
I do I always like Night Gallery. And there was actually a couple of sequels for Annabelle. And it's interesting because they are both kind of considered canon, but they both came out in 2019. and they both have completely different stories from the story that we just heard. So
Right.
I don't know what's going on there, but they did come out the same year. And it's like I said, 2019. But then we have the fact that Annabelle has inspired fashion.
Oh yeah.
Did she invent Annabelle bottoms?
This is hot off the press. It was like a couple of days ago. So Victoria Beckham, formerly of the Spice Girls and wife to David Beckham, the football or soccer player. I don't know which one it is.
Yeah, you could say either.
Yeah, it's different in the UK to what it is in Australia. But anyway, so yeah, this is her, and she wore this a couple of days ago. I don't know where she was, but she was accused of dressing like Annabelle. And so I don't know if that was behind it at all, but yeah, it just goes to show that this story is still kind of contemporary. Still in the news.
It keeps going. She's an inspiration to us all.
Yeah, but I just don't know how much we want to talk about the Warren scandal. I mean, so many things that they did are scandalous.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely talked about them on Monster Talk, the podcast, as being. I don't want to say. Okay, so we talk about fraud a lot and hoaxes, and like there's this question of, is someone pulling a grift or are they sincere? And it's like part of the Warren story makes me feel like they're absolute grifters. Like part of it really does.
Well, and if when you watch The Conjuring, I mean, they've made them out to be more attractive than they were, and in love, and there's this romance, and they dance together, and I mean, it's the way they portray them.
It's fairy tale. It's
happily married couple.
Who
just
in our
happen
research,
to be
though,
demonologists.
Yeah, but in our research, we discovered that there are contractual obligations to Warner Brothers to not get into any of the scandals. They have to make them fairy tale loving couple as part of the contract.
Well, Karen, you brought up a great point last night, and that is, as we were watching the Conjuring, if they truly believed that all of these items in their little museum were as dangerous as they say, why would they leave their daughter there? Why would they have that museum connected right next to their daughter, where she can walk in and have any of these things happen?
We had the father say, you keep away from this doll and you keep out of this museum. But absolutely, that was very dangerous. They could have had the museum somewhere else. Yeah, if you truly believed in these kinds of things, why would you have that attached to their house?
I tell my kids all the time, do not go into the atomic waste dump in the basement. Just stay out of there. It's none of your business.
None of your business. Here. Yeah, that's the way to handle it.
I think further to what
Father
Matt
of the
was
Year,
saying,
you are on your way.
for years, he had this impression that Lorraine thought that she psychically knew him, and that she got bad vibes from him or something like that. But I think he has a slightly different perspective now, that maybe she was just unhappy. And it seems that way from the stories that are coming out about the Warrens. And so if you go and Google the Warrens, and you Google the name Judith Penny, this is a woman who claims in a declaration that she actually lived with the Warrens, and that she was Ed Warren's live-in girlfriend. However, when they met, she was underage. She was 15 years old, and he was. So this is before he became a demonologist. He was a bus driver, as you would be, and
Cramden-esque.
They met that way and started a relationship, and that Lorraine, according to this declaration, Lorraine was okay with this, and that again, I don't know how much we want to go into.
Well, it's a weird, like the allegations are there. They're public, right? So the allegations are there. They're public. I'm always cautious about these things, because especially when there's a lot of money on the line, and that it is possible, that there's nothing to this, but the allegations are on the record, and they're dark. They're really dark and disturbing. And they
and I'm not
making moral judgments about people get into polyamorous relationships. That's not That's not this. This is an underage girl.
Well, she was
Yeah.
underage, and if what she says is true, I mean, she claims that she got pregnant
Right.
to
That they
Ed
let
at
her to
one
have an
point.
abortion. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no, initially they asked her to say that someone had broken into the house and raped her,
Yeah.
and that was how she became pregnant. And she refused to do that, and somehow they coerced her into having an abortion. And then that very night, after she'd had the surgery, they went and gave a lecture somewhere and left her at home. And so I think she says that she was with Ed until about 2003, so a couple of years before he died, and that she still talks positively about him, but she doesn't talk happily about Lorraine. But she does also say that Ed was very abusive towards
To
Lorraine.
Lorraine. Yeah. Yeah. So Ed comes across as being a jerk by most of the people I've like heard who interacted with him. I mean, obviously.
Well, what about
He could snap
Ray's
the violence very
experience?
quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe Nickel
And-
was like talked about him wanting, like, threatening to punch him out. Yeah.
And yeah,
Sorry.
what about your experience with Ed too? Didn't you find that he? It didn't seem like they believed in what they were saying and what they were espousing. That that this was, as you said, a kind of grifter thing.
Well, it's kind of the funny thing. I mean, we know what he told Ray Garton to do.
Right.
We know that he told, but when I called him, I had just finished reading In a Dark Place, and I said, "Is what's in the book true?" And he said, "Every word is absolutely true."
I mean, I haven't read it, but probably. Yep.
And then
Every
this,
word is actually a word.
Yeah.
I think is more what
maybe in that
he
sense.
meant. But then I also
But
asked
if
him
you-
about the entity, because I said, "Okay, well, what do you know about the entity?" And he said, "Oh, well, I know, I can't remember her name, the lead sort of scientific investigator on that, Deborah something, I can't remember what her name was."
Yeah,
But
can't remember.
he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm very good friends with her, and that is exactly how it happened." And I'm like, "So they dry iced a monster and it became an ice thing that what?" But yeah,
Well-
so it was he is, if he thought you were a believer, he gave you that party line. If he
Yep.
If he wanted to be kind of in with you and you were supposed to be helping him with his scam, then he was pretty clear about that too. But he would
But
he would flip to violence very quickly.
well, he seemed to have a record of saying to people, make this up, tell the story, make it good, that kind of thing. And as for them being staunch Catholics, if you go and look up these articles about this whole scandal, Judith Penny says that as far as they were concerned, or especially, well, she's referring to Lorraine. That her true God, stuff that up. She said that Lorraine's true God was money, and that they weren't practicing Catholics. But again, this is what's said in this declaration. This is what's said on various websites. I think Fox News reported this story, and Hollywood Reporter. So again, these are claims.
Right. And the lawsuit was settled in December 2017. And there was this statement released by Brittle, which, well, both parties. But let me just say, I don't want to get into it, but things that you say when you settle a lawsuit don't necessarily reflect reality. They reflect...
Telling me, but
yeah, I know. they reflect what you're required to say to close the deal, basically, to make it all go
to
away.
move on with your life.
Yeah. And so what he says is Mr. Brittle has agreed to dismiss his lawsuit against New Line and its affiliates with prejudice. As the parties announced on the record in open court last week, Mr. Brittle realizes that filing the lawsuit was a mistake and that New Line has no liability and did nothing wrong. New Line has remaining counterclaims against Mr. Brittle, and the parties are working to resolve those as well. So basically, there was a suit and a countersuit, and they were just trying to work
prejudice.
With prejudice.
With prejudice. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds exactly like someone would say in real life. Yeah. So So the $900 million lawsuit was actually much more complicated than that. And there's, we can put a link to this in the show notes, but the Hollywood Reporter, which broke the original story about the Penny allegations, that's gone. So I assume that either they were forced to or requested to remove that story. The claims are, I mean, you can still find the sort of ghost remnants of all this stuff, but as part of the settlement, they've pulled all these things. Ed and Lorraine are both dead now.
Yep. Yeah.
Not here to defend themselves.
That is true, but when you look all told at the things that we know about the Warrens and the lies, it really does give you pause.
Well, you know, there was a time when Ed started having heart attacks. It seemed like he was having a heart attack conveniently at a lot of times. And it started to feel like Fred Sanford. Yeah. You know, it was really getting kind of peculiar. The
Elizabeth is the big one.
So, yeah. You know, I'm coming home. You know, he really, you know, and with all the other lies, I was starting to really doubt he was having heart attacks. So he's kind of, you know, talk about the boy who cried wolf. You know, he was really getting difficult to believe on anything.
The man who cried demon.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's the title for this episode.
The man who cried, I'm not a pedophile.
What? Okay.
with that
here's
said,
where our listeners angrily write, it's hebephilia. It's not the pedophilia.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Statutory rape is statutory rape. Turns out.
Yeah.
So,
it turns out
very,
that's
very
true.
sad story. I mean, if that's true, that's just.
When I hear about people dating
and
underage women, it shakes my nerves and it rattles my brain. That's all I'm saying.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, me too. But it is truly a sad story. You know, no matter what, there are a lot of very unhappy people who've just really influenced a lot of other people, made them very unhappy too. It's just all told. It's pretty sad. If this was just a complete work of fiction, it would be one thing.
Well,
would have enjoyable elements, but
yeah, and I like the Conjuring films, with the exception of this, and I'm going to use a big word, hagiographical approach that they deal with the Warrens. And what I found when we were doing research for this was, and so hagiography or hagiography is when you write like a biography of a saint. So the movies right, you raise them up and elevate them. The movies make the Warrens out to be saints. But what we found when doing research for this was that Warner Brothers is contractually obligated to not really do anything negative to the Warrens' reputation. So it's not necessarily that the writers actually believe that they're saints, is that they're contractually obligated to make them into saints, which is
and The Conjuring 2 really made that, you know, made Ed into a superhero.
Ed
a superhero that sings Elvis songs, you know.
He repairs everything.
He's got the sideburns, you know.
Yeah. And we've talked to people who are actually involved in the infield research. Like we talked to
one of his last interviews.
It was. I'm very happy we got that. But Guy Lion Playfair was like, if he was there for a day, and then they were told to leave. Yeah, that was. That
was a good interview. We found some common ground with him. That was
we really did, and I enjoyed talking with him. I don't agree with his beliefs, but I enjoyed chatting with him immensely, and I appreciate.
He was someone who I think was a true believer.
Oh no, for sure he was.
Can't say the same thing about the Warrens.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's like, is it legit? Like, are people sincere?
You can find common ground when you're sincere.
Yeah,
you know, absolutely.
That's the thing. But when someone's just being a liar, I mean, and that's the thing. That is another episode. The Guy Lion Playfair episode of Monster Talk is one that people really do need to go back into the catalog and listen to, because it is a great episode.
Yeah, like all of our back catalog, all of our episodes,
which are going to be,
check it out.
Yeah, going to be on a new platform soon.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. So I'm very excited about that. So.
And we want to thank everyone for joining us. This was a fun discussion, guys. And we really appreciate you watching these episodes and giving us a thumbs up and commenting below, getting in touch with us and telling us what you want to hear about. And we certainly appreciate your support on Patreon.
And the likes and subscribes right here. Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Do those.
Tell your friends, and we just really appreciate our listeners, and it's just good to keep in touch with everyone.
And if you hate the show, don't forget to tell your enemies that it's great.
Yeah,
there you go. There you go. And comment below on what you'd like to see, because we actually do pay attention to that, and we're trying to put some of that into action as we speak. So
indeed,
groovy.
Right.
Well, thanks again for joining us.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Or day, or whatever, whenever you watch this.